everyone, welcome to Sunrise Extra on a Monday. Thanks for tuning in with us. If you are new here and you're scrolling for, the latest updates this morning, this is a unscripted after show that we do every Monday through Friday right here at 7 a.m. And yes, we are talking about the Oregon wildfires because what a weekend. But promising news, little pieces of promising news all over our state today, whether it's, evacuation orders lowered or totally lifted for a lot of areas. And by the way, go to kgw.com. Right on the front, it says live updates. Click on that and it has every update by county so you can check because there's a lot of them. But let's start with Rod real quick because raindrops hopefully are in our future.
Yeah, and by the way, quick shout out while I'm thinking of it. Remember when the fire over the weekend got within a half a mile of Estacada? I'm talking about the Riverside fire. And somehow the men and women battling that blaze held that line. Yeah. And boy, how thankful.
Agreed. The last report was it's now a mile away, so
the weather pattern, which started to change last Thursday night, Friday, we lost the east wind. That slowed the fire activity and allowed our crews to make some significant progress or at least hold some lines. And now we're seeing phase 2 of these changes, which include the chances of rain coming up. Futurecast at 10 p.m. tonight showing some rain showers at the coast. Shows a little bit of rain, but nothing guaranteed during the day tomorrow. And again, a rain chance, but nothing guaranteed on Wednesday here for the valley. There's a low offshore. Now that low finally comes inland on Thursday and Friday. And right now that looks to be the so-called guaranteed, somewhat widespread rainfall. That again is this Thursday and Friday. This Futurecast map shows some decent rain tonight and tomorrow into Tuesday at the coast, but very little in the valley until we get, let me go ahead and click it, until we get into Thursday and Friday. Now here come the bigger, heftier amounts. Thursday, Friday totals maybe 0.3 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch in parts of the Willamette Valley. So when weather systems coming in, the chance of some rain, and then also winds aloft will pick up, and all of that should lead to some movement or some thinning of that smoky cloudiness that's been up top. Very little change will we notice today. In fact, this morning air quality is hazardous. That's the worst category. But tomorrow, see the blue on the west side of the state? That is a big time thinning out of wildfire smoke. Now, that's good news for the west side and maybe even into Portland and Salem, but bad news for you folks in Central Oregon where west winds will tend to hold the really thick smoke over places like Jefferson County down into Deschutes County and maybe up through Wasco County out there in the East Gorge as well. There's the 7-day numbers, but again, the most likely rain on Thursday and Friday. We mentioned over the weekend on our news coverage, we may have mentioned it again this morning, guys, that the bottom line, this time of the year, when you get fires that are burning 100,000 acres, the Beachy Creek fire, the Riverside fire, they typically will burn the interior of those blazes all the way through the fall months until Mother Nature provides enough rain to put them out. So that would be maybe late October, November. So my point being, there's going to be smoke continually manufactured by these forest fires in the coming weeks. And, we're not going to totally lose the smoke. We look for some gradual improvement starting this week, and then we'll see how good we get or don't get. Right now, it looks like we could actually see some blue sky this coming Sunday.
That would be such a welcome sight. I guess we do have to manage expectations, all things considered. Travel has been difficult with the visibility the way it's been. Our photographer, Chad Dehart, is south of the Terwilliger Curves there. Okay, my producer is telling us I-5 southbound in 217, so he's made his way from up near Clark County, and now he's heading in this direction. And you see that kind of mix that Rod was talking about of the fog and the smoke. Over the weekend, we had some business out in Clackamas, and so we were there. And literally, we had to come back home over the Fremont Bridge. You could not see anything up that high. I mean, it's just been a big, fat mess.
I was trying to read the exit sign. Oh, yeah, there is Malala. We had Brian Clerkley out there live this morning. Malala, one of the areas that has been in level 3 of evacuations since late last week, as a matter of fact. And they, along with Estacada, have been at that level 3 now for several days. The news has gotten better in terms of that Riverside fire. Like Rod said, it's been standing still for at least the most part. It got to within a half mile of Estacada. didn't get any further. In fact, the last report we had that fire is now about a mile outside of Estacada. So some better news for those people who live out in that way, but Molalla still remains in that level 3 evacuation order status, and that means they cannot return to their homes yet. And I know a lot of people at this point, because it has been so many days now, would love to get back there and would love to check out, where. Oh, and you're right, Celeste. Thank you very much. Molalla has been downgraded to a level 2, which means those people
Brenda
can
and I
get
were
back.
like mouthing to each other. I'm like, I thought it was at level 2.
I even looked at Brenda when I said that. I looked over. You're like, okay, you're gonna give me a nod that I was right.
We
or not?
were talking. I'm like, isn't it 2 over here? And we
I'm sorry, I let you down.
Yes,
Okay, so
Molalla, level
yes.
2.
Yes, Estacada still at level 3.
Yeah.
At least I was right 50% with that statement. So here, I'll change it this way. You can go back now if you live in Molalla, and you can check on your homes finally after many days. But fire officials throughout the state in all these different areas that kind of got into that level 3 zone and now have gotten downgraded to level 2, the warning is that you still may need to leave again, right? Mm-hmm. So you can go back, you can check on your homes, you can get settled back in, but the idea is that you still need to be prepared to leave at a moment's notice, because really one of the headlines from over the weekend, fire officials are telling us, hey, the news is better, but we are not out of the woods.
Yeah, and I was just seeing Willie Huey. What's up? Happy Monday, Willie. He says, can you guys please talk to the Oregon Emergency Management Director? He's been talking to national media, calling this a mass casualty event. So what we know confirmed so far is at least 8 Oregonians have died from these fires across the state. We are now at 5 missing in Marion County. We are at least 50 people missing in Lane County from that fire burning along the
Holiday
McKenzie
Farm
River,
fire.
the Holiday Farm fire. It's still too dangerous to go in there. Fire officials are kind of starting now to go into that area. One woman was found sadly dead inside her home in Vida. But that is the only confirmed death from that area, and there's been a couple people in southern Oregon. But with at least 50 missing in Lane County, 5 missing in Marion, it's not going to be good news as far as that goes. I think.
The Holiday Farm fire, that's the one near Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
Our Christelle Kumwe did a piece on the fire chief there, the upper McKenzie fire chief, who lost her home, and she was out there fighting for other people to try and save theirs. So I'm looking at all this yesterday and my doorbell rings, and it's one of my former neighbors. And she said, Brenda, she said, we just got back from McKenzie River, where I didn't realize where she moved to, but she's been gone for a little while. Mm-hmm. And she said, we built our dream home on the McKenzie River and it's gone. So she is back in our neighborhood staying at a friend's house. Yeah. But it was crazy. Wow. She told me a story that just gave me chills. And these types of stories are being repeated time and time again, where literally her home, knock on the door from a volunteer. It wasn't even a deputy. She said it was a volunteer. They got out with minutes to spare, got in the car and escaped, but their home burned to the ground. And she saw a picture of her house in Christelle's piece. That's how she kind of put together, like, that's my home. Yeah. It was awful.
Yeah, there are some incredible stories of escaping over the last few days. We heard from the firefighter down there near the Santiam Canyon who talked about the couple that was in their home and basically woke up in enough time. I can't remember if they were in Lyons or Gates, but one of those small towns along the Highway 22 corridor, and they got out of their beds in enough time to just jump in the river and literally stayed in the river as that fire ripped through that Highway 22 corridor down there in the Santiam Canyon.
Yeah, I mean, you do whatever you have to do and you jump in a fire. A girl I went to high school with, friend of mine, she barely got out of the Holiday Farm fire. Her cabin is there. She said she had 5 minutes to get out of the house, then she was stuck on the road with fire closing in and trees coming down on the road in front of her. She said lots of people are still missing. She doesn't know if her cabin made it. But there's a lot of campers in that area, and because they didn't have cell phone service, they didn't get any warning, and so it was, volunteers and other people just literally running through, yelling out. So, very scary stuff. I see a lot of people kind of asking questions about their certain areas. Please bring the rain.
Yeah, Charlene Miller Simmons says evacuated from Eagle Creek, praying for some good rains. Michael Sanchez says prayers for rain. Everybody's doing the same thing.
Right now on the screen, if you're watching right now on our Facebook live feed or Twitter, YouTube, we're showing you a number that was released over the weekend. We shared it earlier this morning on our Sunrise TV show. If you live in those two spots, Detroit or Idanha, you can call that number 503-798-6823, or if you know someone who lives in that area, you could pass this number along to them, because you can call that number, provide all of your information, and the deputies there will actually go and check on your home and will provide you with a status. I mean, there are literally people who are not sure if their home is still standing or if it is completely burnt to the ground, and they're not able yet to get back into those spots because it's still completely unsafe to do that. So they're somewhere else wondering what status their home sits in. You can call that number. We just had it up on the screen, and the deputies will follow up. They'll check out your place and they'll get back to you whether the news is good or terrible. But at least at that point, people will start to know.
You know.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I've noticed too, driving around, not necessarily as much here in the Portland area, but down near Happy Valley and kind of Sunnyside Boulevard, that side of town, a lot of the people were driving around with their masks on inside their car. And like I said, we had to go down that way, and my daughter is super sensitive with her upper respiratory. She was coughing before we even, got in the vicinity, and I felt like lightheaded. The doctor that we interviewed talked about, even if you're healthy with no underlying health conditions, this is awful for you. And I have been out a couple times, like grocery shopping and doing some things, and I'm like, man, I'm feeling lightheaded. It's just such a weird, intense feeling when you have to breathe in, even with your little mask. I know that doesn't do anything but smoke particles, but it is just intense.
No, it really is. Saturday afternoon, I went out in the backyard, and the boys were helping me pick up some of the branches that kind of fell, and some of the the smaller branches that fell all across the yard earlier last week, and it was fine. Even Mia yelled. I was like, they should be wearing masks. Okay, and they were like, it's not too bad, Dad. Later that night, though, 3-4 hours later, I went outside again. I was like, whoa, it's way worse. So I know it depends on where you live around town, but the smoke conditions kind of seem to improve and then get worse again over the weekend, in and out. And I'm sure, Rod, that has something to do with, small amounts of maybe some wind in the area that moves it ever so slightly. But man, even I was shopping at Safeway, Brenda, and at one point I'm coming up the frozen food aisle, which sort of looks right out to the exit doors. And those are opening like this all the time. It was so smoky, so smoky in the kind of that front entryway of the Safeway. They really can't do anything about that smoke coming in.
Has anybody had their house smell like?
Oh, it reeks of smoke.
Yeah.
It does.
Our upstairs is worse than our downstairs.
It's
we actually,
terrible.
so Drew and I worked over the weekend. I anchored the Saturday morning and Drew did the Sunday morning. And for something to do like late Saturday afternoon, I was like a zombie kind of. But we actually, we have a little girl, and we've kind of exhausted all the indoor activities after this whole week. And so it's like, where can you even, everything's closed for little kids, or for most of us.
Sure.
And so we're like, well, I guess let's just go to Washington Square. And so we walked around for a little bit, but just the same as that, Drew, Safeway, like, the doors to the mall are opening and closing. And there was a lot of people in there, I think, with the same idea of like, here's just somewhere indoors that I can be that's not my house. And it was smoky inside the mall. A lot of the stores inside Washington Square were closed with little, paper on the windows saying, due to air quality, we're not going to be here. At Starbucks was closing early.
Yep.
So we kind of walked around, and then you can see when the light comes in from some of those skylights that it was pretty smoky even inside the mall. You'd think their HVAC is pretty good there, but can't escape it.
Rod, how about Vancouver? In your neck of the woods, how would you describe the smoke there over the weekend?
Part of me thinks I'm getting used to it. When you get used to something, you think, hey, maybe it's not as bad.
Sure.
Because our air quality numbers, didn't vary much at all up here, as much of the area, just staying in that hazardous quality. We did get in on the big time fog the last couple of mornings, and it's pretty foggy outside again this morning. How bad was it? If I was on a comedy show, it was so bad that for the first time all year, Rod Hill and his buddies did not play golf on the weekend.
Well, geez,
that's a statement.
And let me tell you,
things
have to be pretty bad for me and my buddies not to go out and play golf.
This is a comedy show, Rod, by the way.
Not, but my wife was even stunned.
Oh my gosh, Jennifer Taft is talking about feeling headachy and tired and just kind of sludgy.
She actually opened up the conversation by saying, "Morning, crazy news peeps." From Jennifer Taft.
Guilty.
There's a viewer watching us on the Facebook stream named Marv, and Marv says, "Greetings. I am an evacuee from Estacada, staying in Culver right now." Now, I'm curious. I'm just going to throw this out there, gang, and we're not going to have time to really dive too deep into this, but I did hear from a lot of people in that Estacada area, because as you guys all know, my wife is from that area. A lot of people making a difficult choice over the weekend on whether to stay in their homes or leave. Now, they're supposed to leave because all of Estacada in a level 3 evacuation order, but a lot of those people don't want to leave because they're afraid of their homes being looted. And we talked about that at the end of last week. It continued to be a storyline over the weekend. Some people making this choice of whether to go because they're in a level 3 or whether they should stay because they're afraid that their home will be looted. So I'm going to ask you, Marv, if that crossed your mind at all, if you gave that any thought at all, and if you're concerned about your home right now because you're not there in Estacada. If you can chime back in, Marv, please do.
So Lori Lynn Laughlin Howard says, remember to clean your AC filters, clean your fans, your ceiling fans. It helps while you're staying inside. Yeah, that is a really good point.
This is a look. We've had Chad Dehart, one of our sunrise photographers, on the road all morning long, kind of showing us not only the smoke throughout the area, but also the fog that we're dealing with this hour again. And this, I believe, he's still on I-5, still heading south right now.
Doesn't it just look like, I mean, we're so used to fog here, especially on the sunrise show, you know, like showing you fog shots, that you kind of just default to thinking that it's just fog. And it's just wild, you know, that this has settled in so much.
You know what, though? It's still September the 14th. So, Rod, we still have about a week left of summer, technically. And it's kind of crazy to me that if you go back now 2 Fridays, we were talking about last week being this stretch of really hot weather. We were going to set some records. It was going to be so hot up until the end of last week. And then, of course, things changed with the windstorm and then the fires that came from that. So now we're dealing with these 60-degree temperatures. I was curious today, if we got rid of the smoke, if we could just eliminate all of it, how hot would it be today, tomorrow, the next day, would you say?
You're making him work. I like it.
So if it were a sunny day today, today's high temperature would be somewhere between 77 and 80 degrees.
Ooh,
and probably the same tomorrow, and probably reaching 80 for sure on Wednesday.
Wow.
You know, records are still up into the 90s. But yeah, so it's been a big, you know, forecasting in general, starting with that stretch that we over forecasted for that. We were thinking it could be 5, 6, 7 days in a row of 90-degree temperatures, and then that simply didn't happen. We had those morning clouds that Saturday before Labor Day weekend, and it only hit, I think, 76 degrees for a high temperature that day. My wife is amazed I can remember these things because she says I never remember what she said 5 minutes ago. But
it's all about what you care about, right?
And then, of course, leading into the east winds that sparked the fire, and then all the smoke coming in, it's held temperatures in the 60s. So yeah. It's been crazy. Earlier on the stream, Jennifer Taft was wondering if we would have some lightning and thunder this coming week with the rain chances. And the rain chances this week that we're in now, starting to pick up in the coming days, are going to be courtesy of a low that sits out to sea and then slowly comes in on Thursday and Friday. And if it were normal times, I would say, no, I'm not really seeing anything that would lead me to believe we would have thunder and lightning. But all these extra particulates in the air can also add instability, which means, you know, all bets are off for what you would assume as a forecaster is going to be the case. So that's my way of saying I'm not sure. But we'll be watching things carefully as our rain chances pick up, especially Thursday and Friday.
You're always a straight shooter. I mean, I've been hanging on every little bit of positive news that you or Matt Zaffino pass along. I mean, you know, when I left work last week, it was kind of like, okay, Monday, I know that's kind of shifted, but I was telling everybody, I know, we just have to hang on. I mean, it's gotten to that point. I just want to focus on something positive, because it's just been a deluge of wave after wave of terror.
Yeah, I want to shout out some of our.
And you know, Brenda,
oh, go ahead.
What we don't know. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Rod, you're getting a shout out on Twitter. Rockin' Rod did not chase the white ball around this weekend. Shocking.
Oh, geez.
Oh, God, he's going to do the dance.
That comment was supposed to lead to that dance.
I don't know if you can appreciate how bad things have to be for me and my buddies not to play golf, but they have to be pretty bad.
Oh, we get
it. Bruce on Twitter asking, and you've kind of gone over this, but maybe just a real quick for folks who are just tuning in, when will air quality, he's in Clackamas, when will air quality get a little bit better? They're asking.
Well, we think very little noticeable change today, but tomorrow during the day, I think, is our first realistic chance to see some improvement. Is it going to be noticeable improvement? I don't know. But I think we'll see the numbers that DEQ puts out at the individual reporting sites actually improve. And then really once we get into Thursday and Friday, now we're really active. We have good chances of rain. We have wind fields aloft. And that should, I would say, at least bring some of our immediate area into the moderate range, which would be huge if we could at least get the yellow dots back on the map and become moderate, right?
Rod, can you give us 30 seconds on this? Lori Sickles chiming in. She says, I heard air quality may not change until October.
Well, I think what she's referring to is the fact that and we mentioned this earlier, that the wildfires themselves, the Riverside, the Beachy Creek, they're not going to totally burn out until fall rains put them out, and that's late October into November. That is typical, by the way, for large fires, but the fires are typically over in eastern Oregon. So that's probably a reference to that. What we're going to end up seeing in the coming 2 weeks, more than likely, is the thickness of the smoke plume just kind of shift. One day it's here, one day it's there, one day it's here. Like tomorrow, we could see some improvement here in the Willamette Valley and certainly at the coast, but it could actually get worse in central Oregon. Now, over time, as this smoke plume shifts and shifts and shifts, it will have a tendency, you would think logically, to thin out somewhat and thin out somewhat. So again, we're looking for gradual improvement, not complete improvement, but certainly there's reason to think that once we get into tomorrow and Wednesday here in Portland and Salem and at the coast, we will have seen the worst behind us. Fingers crossed. One thing that has been positive over these last few days, something we started last Wednesday, so it hasn't even been a full week, but last Wednesday we launched the KGW Northwest Response Fund, teaming up with the American Red Cross on this. And our viewers have really stepped up, to put it lightly, as a matter of fact, because when you look at the numbers, we're up to $1.2 million raised through this one fund, and all of the money that's raised here helps out local families, local people dealing with the fires both here in Oregon and Southwest Washington. So the way it works, one of the ways it works, pretty simply, just text the word RELIEF, RELIEF. If you text that word to that number that's on the screen right now, 503-226-5088, we'll shoot you back a link that will send you to the Red Cross website where you can donate to this KGW Northwest Response Fund. If you're in a position to help, we ask that you do, and we also say thank you to all of you who have given so far to this amazing, amazing fund that's helping out people right here in our backyards. Thank you for watching Sunrise Extra on this Monday. We'll leave you with this, and can't wait to see you again tomorrow morning.